Let's see.
Okay.
Hi, this is Bruce Rawles, and today I'm talking with Jackie Laura Jones. And we've had a lot of great conversations over the years. And today we thought we'd talk about the course's version of the law of attraction, which of course has to include the two different thought systems that the course shows us and reveals to us very clearly that are in our minds. The wrong mind is, as the course would call the ego, and the right mind, which is the correction, which is the Holy Spirit. And I was, for some reason, just crossed my mind. I think it was 18 years ago that the book and the movie The Secret came out, and it talked about the law of
Yes.
attraction. And I was thinking, well, the course has a very different perspective on that, and starting with the idea that the world really is a projection of our thoughts. So that book and movie touch on that, but the emphasis really is in changing the world, changing what our experience in the world and what happens in the world. And the course suggests that maybe that's not really adequate for a lasting peace. That there's really, I think a goal that's um, a very lofty one, but one that the course tells us is achievable, and it's achieved by looking at the two thought systems and comparing them over generally a large period of time, and noticing how our attraction to the ego's insanity of sin, guilt, and fear is counteracted by what's our real nature, which is attracted to the love that we have in our mind. That's the capital L love, not the love for any specific thing or person or substance or situation or whatever. Um, and it seems like a great topic, and there's plenty of places in the course that talk about it. Just real briefly, I did a little searching through the web edition of A Course in Miracles, which is at
Oh,
acim.org,
which is
ACIM, which I use
fabulous.
more and more all the
Oh,
time. And
isn't that
anyway, there's
great?
87 instances of attraction, and there are 13 instances of distraction, and
We're always distracted.
71 of appeal, and then kind of a converse of that is repelling. Lesson 93 has a really, I think, a perfect juxtaposition of the two thought systems. Its title is Light and Joy and Peace Abide in Me. And then the first couple of sentences are, you think you're the home of evil, darkness, and sin. You think if anyone could see the truth about you, he would be repelled, recoiling from you as if from a poisonous snake. So there's the repulsion. And then, of course, I was thinking of the Buddhist ideas of um, attachment and aversion. So all those kind of relate to the idea of looking at all the things that we do in the world that make the dream real, make the dream of space-time and the illusion of the reality of our existence in a little space-time Whoville dream seem
I love
real.
you.
And, and
Whoville
and
dream.
and because we're so immersed in it, we don't even think about it most of the time. And so it takes a
Sure.
tremendous amount of patience and gentleness and discipline and gentle vigilance to go from the mindlessness of the ego to where we have realized that maybe the real attraction of love for love, of attraction to our creator, which is what we never left, is more powerful. And we are just talking about that before we started the recording. So anyway, plenty of stuff to cover here. And so anyway, thanks as always, Jackie, for being here. And now maybe we can dive in. Uh,
Yeah. Oh gosh. Hey. Oh, I love it. I love our discussions. I love being back with you. It's so fun. Yeah. It's such a great topic because you were mentioning just now about the everlasting peace, right?
mhm.
So everyone has the experience of getting something that they want, but then they either want something else than after, or what they want didn't bring them the lasting peace that they thought, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Although it's okay to have those things and want those things or manifest those things, but where is our real investment? Now, the ego, tricks us and wants to keep us focused on the external, right?
Right. Exactly.
But if we want that long lasting peace,
Mhm.
Course in Miracles is such a unique spiritual teaching and practice that we are being led beyond the experience that the external is going to fill us up.
Mhm.
And when we're filled up from the love of God and just internally remembering our true nature as spirit and that we are having a dream here, that we are the dreamer of the dream, when we start, we are led more and more to that experience as we undo this unconscious guilt. Sure, you can still manifest things. That's magic in the world, and drinking water and everything is magic, but you start to lose the attachment of that that's what my salvation is going to be in. And it can be just more like something else you're doing in a dream. But I think when you're mentioning the secret, other things, the reason why people love magic is because it works some of the time. You're able to manifest things. You're able to do it. There's no
Some of the time
guilt
is,
in
is
that.
a good disclaimer. Yeah.
Some of the time is the
Yeah.
key, Bruce, which we know. And sometimes people are just looking to go beyond, either they can't get what they want, they're looking and comparing themselves to others. Why can I manifest this and not that? And well, in the movie, in this, they say, why is everybody able to do it? Well, they're not able to do it all the time because that's the way the world is set up, that we're seek and do not find. But
Hmm.
because it's a world of duality, of course we're going to be able to manifest some of the things. I'm a pretty good manifester in the sense that um, I just get in touch sometimes with what is going on in my life script, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a place there someday, or I knew I was going to live in California, things like that. Like, oh, I'm gonna da 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 da. We could go on and on about that. My point about it is you're in touch with something that's happening in the script sometimes, right? And so I'm able to know what's coming. And if I like it, I think about it and I go, oh my God, that'll be fun when it gets here. But I don't, my salvation isn't in it, in the sense that I'm just living my daily life and getting up in the morning and doing things. But I talk a lot with clients about this who are thinking, and you and I talked about this a little bit too, briefly before we started the recording, of the ego wants us to have guilt about everything. So that's going to include, oh, if I know the world's an illusion, why should I want something? Or why should I? Well, you want it because that's in the script of bodies, and bodies want things. As we're listening to the ego's thought system, when we forget what we really want, what's going to give us the true peace.
Hmm.
Not that we still won't be able to get things and manifest things, but you'll look at them differently. Your salvation won't be in them. It'll just be something else you're doing in the dream. Like, that's so funny. I really wanted a house with a white picket fence with a back porch and a thing for my dog, and I got it. Well, I thought about it for 2 years or whatever. Great, right? But that's just something that's going on in your dream script, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think the confusion comes in when people make it about the world and externally, and that has to fulfill me.
Right.
It just will not do it. And so as you pull back the lens and are undoing the cause of all that needing to project in the first place, a world outside where we find ourselves needing to fill up with everything. As we go back and you're healing that, you look at this manifestation and everything differently. Not that it's not there, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And looking at it differently really is, I think, the result of noticing the disappointment of things that are ephemeral to bring us lasting peace. And I think
Yeah.
you brought that up as, the idea of like a kid opening a Christmas present and within, yeah, a few minutes to a few days or weeks, the toy is broken, or the whatever that it was, and then they start playing with the box, and then the box falls apart, and then it's like, wait, now what,
Right.
but I was reminded of, in lesson 192, there's um, a line that goes something like, 1,000 homes we make, and yet none contents our restless minds.
Mm,
And that's what, and as Ken Wapnick
it's a
points out,
great line.
the homes are really metaphors for our relationships to everyone and everything. And
Yes.
and of course, then the reason why the relationships that we make on our own don't work is because they're all special relationships. They're all what's in it for me, rather than the shared interest that the Holy Spirit says that's the only thing that's going to make you happy. And the only real shared interest that we can count on consistently is waking up from the dream of thinking that the world is going to make us happy. And the irony, of course, is that everything in the world becomes our classroom for looking at our mind when we see what we're doing with it. And we don't have to necessarily change our behavior, or even change our thoughts right away, but just notice over time how quickly we get invested in outcomes and attached to outcomes, and see that, oh, well, there I did it again. I wanted this to happen and I got upset because it didn't. Or I wanted this not to happen and I got upset because it did.
That's
And
right.
and just notice how quickly we go into that ego mode of making the upset outside, instead of recognizing that the setup for the upset was in our minds, and
Love that.
oftentimes at a level we're not even aware of. But we can become aware of it over time if we just ask for that inner kindness teacher's guidance to show us, well, what's really going on here. I'm using the world to try to make me happy, but that's not really what we made it for. We used it to try to escape from unconscious unfounded guilt, and projected it out onto the world. Now, that's not going to be a very popular idea, because it really asks us to look at the illusory nature of not only the world, but our identity within it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we don't do things, like you say, in the world, and enjoy the things that we find helpful and enjoy and fun, and but if we take it too seriously, when it goes beyond a preference to a oh, this is, an upset, that's the clue, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well said.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think that over these many years, we've all kind of just been sharing the message of the course and having discussions. And this ties into the manifesting and why the law of attraction, everything is so popular. And boy, I've no judgment on that. You know that. Anybody watching that, it's not a judgment on the law of attraction. It's just kind of contrasting what A Course in Miracles is saying. And a lot of people who have practiced the law of attraction for years and have not gotten what they wanted say, well, wait a minute, what am I doing wrong? It
Hmm.
produces more guilt, and they feel
Right.
like they're not good at attracting what they want. And they spend an enormous amount of time trying to get in the vibration to attract. Now, because the universe and the dream is the way it is, you will be able to attract things. But as we said before, we can't attract everything. And if you let it get the best of you. But the other thing I wanted to mention too, if it's helpful to folks, is I think that there's also this thing about, because guilt is so big, we know, Bruce. Guilt,
Mhm.
it's what the Course talks about. It's the basis of everything, and it's unconscious to a lot of people. But people
Yep,
go around,
yep,
I don't feel guilty. It's unconscious. It's
exactly.
sometimes we're guilty and we're conscious of it. It's a terrible feeling. We have to give that over to the Holy Spirit, but to reframe that and repurpose that for us. But
Hmm.
it's often unconscious. But I think the thing too to remember, if this is helpful for people, is, um, and I might have put this out in a newsletter, I can't remember, just the idea that behaviorally doing things in the world and some of it, and just being interested, if you're going to be a math teacher or something, you're interested in things growing up that have to do with math or solving problems or whatever, because it's in your script. So it doesn't make the error real when you're doing anything behaviorally in the world. What makes the error real if you think that the world, right, is the cause of everything, and you're not making the link,
Hmm.
right, that it has nothing to do with the truth of who you are.
Right. Right.
So it's almost like it's not that you're not doing anything behaviorally. Well, if I do this, it's not spiritual and I'm just making the error real. But in your resistance to not doing something because you're trying to be spiritual makes the error real.
Sure.
Because as
Sure.
our wonderful friend Ken Wapnick always says, be normal,
Right.
right?
Right.
Be normal, which means if you don't resist, and to your point earlier, Bruce, where you just said, if we just notice, that's so big. If we just notice things, not try to resist, not try to change, not try to be spiritual, not try to, and just notice the thoughts in the mind, your life will flow because you'll be in content of the mind of observing the Holy Spirit's lens and out, however fleeting it may seem, out of the ego's morass of judgment and fear and comparisons and giving up on yourself and I'm not good enough or why can't I manifest this or you know so the law of attraction I just heard about it for years from people who were it can be a great thing but that's duality
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
then people it produces more guilt when you feel you can't manifest something
Yeah.
you know
And I think what's sometimes occasionally recognized, but usually underappreciated is we're attracted both to love and to fear. We're attracted
excellent point.
to both things, and we're largely unaware of the workings of our mind. And if we can look at the ways in which we're um, manifesting, if you will, um, the outcomes that seem to be our life story, those can be reversed. And I think that's where the reversal of cause and effect is another really crucial idea in the course, that
Yes.
we think that the world is doing stuff to us. And yet the course suggests that not only have we got that backwards, but there's a whole nother realm of mind where instead of saying, I'm going to use my mind to make the world behave or appear the way I want it to appear, which I
Mm-hmm.
call being a dream repair technician, or sometimes a recovering dream repair
A
technician
recovering dreamer.
when we realize what we're doing,
Hysterical.
and and just noticing, okay, I'm doing all this in order to rearrange holodeck chairs on a Titanic dream. Another favorite phrase is that it's really a hologram, and it's not going to make us happy. What really is the source of our happiness is the peace that's in our right minds after we've applied the correction that the Holy Spirit or Jesus of the Course, or I like to say the inner kindness teacher, offers us 24/7. And it's always, um, I could see this differently. I'm not upset for the reason I think, and I could see peace instead of this. And just looking at ego's constant barrage of propaganda that says, really, if you look at it carefully, it's seek but do not find. You know,
Right,
always look for something that is going to disappoint you eventually. Maybe not right away, but might be
right.
years or even decades. But sooner or later, the thing that we've invested in is not going
The
to,
tide turns.
the tides turns. Yeah. Yeah. Because everything in this world is ephemeral. And the Course asks us to consider the only thing that's truly valuable is what's eternal. And this morning I was in a session with a lady in Holland who emphasized and had us look at a couple of the workbook lessons in the early part of the workbook of the
Oh,
course.
good.
And the whole idea of just looking at our thoughts, and it's starting with these thoughts don't mean anything, and then making it a little more personal, my thoughts don't mean anything. And so if we can see that everything that's on that horizontal level of the world is really the projection of a dreaming mind, um, that can never really satisfy us. But I think it takes a while for us to come to that conclusion by realizing that, no matter how great things are going, there's still something missing. There's still something that's just not quite there. And
Hmm.
that's, I think, where the Course steps in and says, well, guess what? Nothing in the world is ever going to ultimately satisfy us. But the good news is the world and the whole thought system of sin, guilt, and fear that made it up is made up, and it can be corrected and it can be undone by seeing our complicity and our involvement in it and just refusing to use that malware in our mind and just
No,
say,
I love it. Yeah.
and just say,
Malware.
that's it's not the real operating system that we were designed for. Um,
Right.
the real software in our mind is forgiveness, and that gets us to the top of the ladder in the Course's system, which isn't really a ladder. It's just, again, so many metaphors, but
Yeah.
to the point where we can see the opportunity to forgive consistently, and we're really forgiving ourselves for wanting to make the dream a big deal, wanting to make every
Right.
specific thing um, a source of grievances, a source of frustration and disappointment. I'm reminded of that great sage um, and the monkeys, who said, "Disappointed, disappointment haunted all my dreams." Was it anyway? But that's it. I mean, because
Right.
there's nothing in a dream that can really make us happy, and
That's right.
but a lot of times we wake up and we find ourselves metaphorically, you know, throughout the day doing more dream repair. We think that if I can just
Yes.
um, focus on the outcome that I want and in the world, that's going to make me happy. But then eventually we come to the conclusion, it's like, there must be a better way, like Helen and Bill
Right.
said to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And seeing the inner saboteur too, and that's, I think, so crucial, is just
Right.
kind of catching that and freeze framing. It's like, oh, there's where I introduced an expectation for an outcome that I set it up so that I would be unhappy if this didn't happen or if this did happen.
That's
And
right.
just noticing how heavily invested we are in those outcomes,
That's right.
and that's the seek and do not find uh, mantra of the ego.
Boy, you nailed it. It's one of the hardest things to understand in the course because a lot of that is not conscious to us.
Right,
We
right,
put the dream figures there to disappoint us. We
yep,
put them there so we could see our guilt outside of it. Then
hmm,
they're the ones that are wrong. Of course they're wronging us, and of course that we put them there. So we have to kind of remember that. It's hard because I think there are so many, because of duality, because you have the hot, cold, up, down, good, bad, we are experiencing good, what we would call good things in the dream and having a good life. So I tell people, have your good life. Don't feel guilty about when the things are going good. But Course in Miracles finds people when you get to your wits end about things, or you find yourself totally judging. Maybe you're sick all the time. Maybe you
hmm,
just can't stand feeling the way you do about people and you want to change it, or there's something more spiritually.
hmm,
You've tried everything. There's a myriad of reasons why people find it, and it
yep,
doesn't mean you don't enjoy your life. Again, it's such a brilliant thought system. It's an exercise in the
absolutely.
mind about how to look at anything. And guess what the big bonus is? You get to awaken to more of your true self. That makes you feel good along the way as you release unconscious guilt. Ken used to always say, well, when do you make better decisions? Or I'm paraphrasing him, of course. I don't, but like, when do you make better decisions? When do you wait? When you're softened, when you're not desperate, when you're not in intense fear, so this thought system goes such a long way, even just meeting us where we are.
Mhm.
Even though intellectually we'll say, well, I know the world's not real, but this, yeah, but just live your life. The only thing you have to do is observe yourself, observe the thoughts in the mind. That's it. The action will take care of itself. You'll be
Yeah.
active to the Holy Spirit, passive to the ego. So you're still doing everything you're doing in the dream, but guess what won't be there? All the guilt and the judgment and everything that accompanies the ego script. You'll
Right.
just be able to kind of watch things but what do I do? What do I do? People say, well, you're you're going to do what you would normally do without ego involvement, which means you'll be more relaxed, more, even if the body can be very busy in the dream, but you're so in touch with that quiet center all the time. Oh my gosh, can I give you this quick example
Sure, of
of,
course.
I mean, how do I, let's shorten it. So, because it's, so we Mark had a trip to Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, so he was taking people to the Kentucky Derby. For maybe people watching who don't know, Mark is my husband. He's a pilot, so he was taking a private group to the Kentucky Derby. He was going to be there for 4 days, so I said, "Oh my gosh, I'd like to kind of fly out and meet him if I can." If he's going to be somewhere for a few days. So I'm like, I want to go to Louisville. You know, I can take clients on the road. I'm very lucky because I have worked for years on what was Skype. It's still now Zoom and everything. So I go to Louisville and we said, we're just going to dress the part. And so we didn't have tickets to the Kentucky Derby. We're just going to the part, dress the part, got our fascinators and our hand, and we'll just see what happens. We go to the Derby again. The point of why I'm saying this is we're kind of just in the flow, and I'll just speak from my own experience. I was so aware that I'm the mind watching myself in Los Angeles in 1 minute and Louisville in the other. And now this body that I think that I am is running around Louisville going to this thing called the Kentucky Derby, right? So this is what's going on in my mind simultaneously as I'm doing the normal thing. We're
Mhm.
going to get hats and we're doing this thing. So we get into the Derby, right? My goal at the beginning of the day was always giving everything over to the Holy Spirit in the hotel room. I just said, oh, just want a day of just peace. And we were with Mark's pilot and his wife. So that's just the goal of just peace, meaning people can substitute that word, just having a day where you're just listening to the Holy Spirit. So I'm not reactive. I'm just kind of responding and just moving through, being as helpful as I can, facilitating, awakening, whatever. So just that's just a thought in my mind that always pops up. So we get into the Derby, okay, miraculously. So we're in the Derby. We're like, oh, this is great. We're just on this level. We'll just watch it. Okay. Just watching everybody go by. I'm like, gosh, all the bodies dressed in all the different hats. And it's so pretty. We're just being normal. There's no big deal. But in my mind, I was simultaneously just so aware of the dream, still just always being in the dream. There was some celebrity coming down the stairs we couldn't see because the handlers were in front of them. But what happened because of that, which we didn't know, my husband's, Mark's friend's wife said, oh, let's go up here and see what's on this level. We walked up to see what was on that level. We're walking around. 15 minutes later, we're like, did we just get up here into this place? I mean, that we weren't supposed to, this is a VIP area, whatever. The guards were gone because they were so distracted by. So, what I'm saying, the point I'm trying to make is look at me telling the story, our lives, like all these things going around, swirling around all the time. They can be things that you think of that are going on that are very busy, or it could just be me in the hotel room with Mark and we're just kind of on our iPads and he's doing a little work for the next flight and I'm doing whatever it is. The wonderful thing about the course is that you cultivate this no matter what was going on and what seems in this big in the world. And wow, look at this adventure and look at there's no reason not to enjoy that. At the same
Mhm.
time, I had no attachment to what happened that day, no attachment if we got in or not, or it's parking, it's this whole thing. I ended up betting on a couple of the horses, and I bet and I chose the winner, and I chose the one that came in second to place and the one that came in third to place because I was just in the moment of this, this, but no attachment,
Hmm.
won some money. Um, we have a lot of experiences which we would call really good and fun. We can enjoy those, right? Then we have
Hmm.
experiences where we're like, I was helping a very, very close person to me through a crisis recently, right? So me as Jackie is going through all these things in the script, right? There's no need to be doing anything but just observing it. And then sometimes you'll be very joyful about something. Sometimes you're joining people with compassion, empathy, and you're helping someone, right? Sometimes you're very quiet in solitude and you're not doing anything and you're sitting on your back porch reading. Sometimes you're out doing the quiet center behind you, behind the eye, behind everything is there no matter what.
Yep. Yep.
No
Yeah. And
matter
that's
what.
that quiet center that really watches, the surreality of the world. And like you say, just there's nothing wrong with enjoying the things that seem to be happening, like you're winning some bets in the horse races, and why not,
That's
enjoy
right.
that. But
Yeah.
at the same time, this like, does that make any difference? Well, no. And the course
No.
says, that everything that happens in this world is like feathers dancing in the wind. It's like
Yeah.
we've given it all the meaning that it has. And
That's right. And it's already over. We're not experiencing that
hmm
way as of
hmm
yet. But as the
hmm
course says, the world was over long ago. So that would be another clue or another motivator to not be so serious here about everything.
right.
Not right?
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
that observer, like you said at the beginning, and just notice,
Yeah, yeah, and
right?
noticing and looking are key ideas in the course's metaphysics of the practice of it is just looking at the two attractions, looking at the attraction for um, pain, suffering, guilt, death. I was just looking at some of the sections in um, the chapter 19.
Oh, good. Yeah,
That's
let's
yeah.
read from
So
something.
for
Yeah.
example, the first obstacle in the obstacles to peace is the desire to get rid of it. Well, there's an attraction to sabotage and basically
Yes.
putting a monkey wrench in our peace. And the subsection under that is the attraction of guilt. Um, which begins, the attraction of guilt produces fear of love, for love would never look on guilt at all. It is the nature of love to look upon only the truth, for there it sees itself, with which it would unite in holy union and completion. Well, that's our real nature. I mean, that's our true eternal identity. Not just, you and I having this conversation, but all beings, not just 8 billion
Yes.
plus people on this planet, but all creation everywhere, beyond space and time, really. And it says, as love must look past fear, so must fear see love not. For love contains the end of guilt as surely as fear depends on it. So there's basically, love is attracted only to love, it says. Overlooking guilt completely, it sees no fear. So those are the two thought systems. And because we go back and forth between the sanity of the Holy Spirit and the insanity of the ego, it's
Right.
it's like we're being pulled in multiple directions all the time. But if
Yes.
we look at the insanity of being attracted to what doesn't serve us, you know, we realize, gee, this course is really telling us, even though it sounds outrageous when you first hear the phrase, the attraction of guilt, the attraction of pain, the attraction of death, all those things really represent the thought system of a dualistic dream that says that we made up um, an insane, crazy identity that seems to confirm that we pulled off this impossible crime of separation. And yet, um, everywhere you read in the course, it says, well, what if that's not true? How do we know that that's true? We
Right.
don't. And and so there's a part of our mind that's always looking at that and saying, well, maybe there's a way to look at this and see. that what we're really drawn to truly is the peace that can't possibly change. Where it says a tranquil mind is not a little gift, and that's a huge
Yes.
understatement, isn't it? Yeah.
It's such a huge understatement.
Mm.
I, my life has changed so much over the years in the sense that um, I really feel connected to God and Source so much that it just overrides everything else.
Mhm.
It's just it overrides. I wanted. What did you say? You had such a good point about. Oh, you were saying something like we don't believe it's hard to believe we're attracted to the guilt and the pain
Right,
and
right,
but I it's because oh my gosh, Bruce, we are so all of us are attracted to our specialness and
right.
we're attracted to this separation,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
metaphysics rather of the course is teaching us that we believe way back before there was even a projection of a world, we took this tiny mad idea that we could be separate from God. And in the ego's myth, the ego tells us that his motto is either one or the other, and that we killed God in favor of us being God, usurping his power and having
Right.
our special self.
Yep.
Well, in the thought, above the outside of time and space, we believe that we really pulled off the impossible, like you said, and now God's going to come back and punish us. And so we
Mhm.
flee the mind through the mechanism of projection,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And so
Yep.
that's why if we were not attracted to the guilt and the fear and everything, we would have to give up our individuality and our special self. So it's
Which is
very,
ultimately giving up nothing, and that's another
that's right.
very
Well,
challenging idea in the course.
it's a
Is
tough
that,
one.
yeah,
I
the
know
little s
people.
self that we think is so important, when you look at even on a physical level. I mean, if you've ever seen if you Google powers of 10, there's a video that shows there's a fella sleeping on the
Oh, I didn't know that. The
on
powers
a
of 10.
on a beach blanket next to a lake, and then you zoom out 10 times and you kind of see, oh, here's now I see the lake, and as you zoom out a little more, and you say, oh, now I see some buildings nearby, and then you zoom out
Oh,
another 10
I
times and you
love
say, oh, it looks like
that.
it's Lake Michigan, and then whatever it is, and then
You're
pretty soon you see
zooming
the
out.
curvature of the earth, and then
Uh,
pretty soon you see the planets going around the solar system, and then it's like, oh, now the stars in the Milky Way, and when you think about that. And then, of course, it runs the other direction and it's down to the microscopic. But the whole point is, everything is so inconceivably insignificant in truth. Every specific thing, no matter, even if it's a galaxy. I mean, because you can, I mean, the James Webb Space Telescope, has shown us pictures of, you know, huge clusters of galaxies that we didn't even know existed. And yet those dwarf in comparison to what we think of as the size of the material universe. And yet the Course tells us that those are irrelevant compared to the being that we are, that's eternal, that we
yes.
all share. And so our task here is to look at, the barriers to the awareness of the presence of that sameness that really leads to the oneness. Because I don't think we can really grok or understand the oneness, and we're not asked to do that.
No.
We're just asked to practice the idea that if I keep forgiving what I'm projecting, see the surreality, whether it's at the Kentucky Derby and watching things happening, and seeing it as a parade of assorted miscellaneous things, but so is our conversation right now. I'm not dismissing that, but
No, no,
everything we
I know
do
the
throughout the
context you're
day.
saying. That's
Yeah,
the point. It's
everything we
anything.
do.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
If we make a big deal out of anything, we're basically saying I'm making what's really nothing into something, or trying to. I'm
Hmm.
trying to make specialness work. I'm trying to take the tiny dream that I'm projecting, make me happy. Now we're back to the new agey law of attraction idea. And like I
Yeah.
say,
It's
like you've been
tough for
saying and I've been saying,
people.
there's nothing wrong
It's
with that.
tough.
It's just
No,
it
no.
just doesn't work. And I think what
Nothing
we really
wrong.
want is what's consistent.
Yeah.
And what's consistent
Yes.
is the peace that's
Yeah.
possible when we forgive consistently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I I I hope that people w- um when we say like um there's nothing wrong with anything. It's just how are you looking at it? What's the
Uh-huh.
purpose for it? And what are you
Right.
using it for?
Yep.
Nothing can be wrong in the world's not there. It's not there. So we can spend all our time judging it or saying this is that. So we are going to have our experiences of duality here, but it goes back to your point about really noticing the thoughts. Um, I always invite kind of my clients that are practicing the course and know that to, well, I actually invite all of everybody to observe their thoughts. But anyway, when you really take in an exercise of trying to just watch, really just noticing your thoughts when you're thinking of something and when you're, oh my gosh, I was just happy 1 minute and then I had a depressed thought, or gosh, now I got really involved in this game. There's no judgment in getting involved in a game. I'm just noticing that I'm involved in the game. Wow, that took my attention. Now I'm over here. Now you cultivate the awareness of watching
Hmm.
so that when
Hmm.
something really comes up and really you have a real trigger that like upsets you, that you know, you're still, you have cultivated that. And then maybe, just maybe, as we practice the forgiveness enough as it's taught in the course, you don't react. You start to react less. And when you
Right.
do react, there's no judgment on reacting.
Right.
There's just looking at it afterwards when you can. But the point is, as we undo all this, I absolutely love that thing about the power of 10, because that's kind of like can be one's experience where the lens, you're just like
Hmm.
everything does become less significant. In my life, the things I used to be so attached to
Hmm.
have totally fallen away. Again, not, I don't sit there and go, oh, I'm not doing that. It's not because you're spiritually bypassing, that it's an illusion that you're, but things just naturally fall away because you put so much investment for the purpose that you of thinking what it was going to bring you. Then when I'm more fulfilled with just remembering the love of God and how I'm able to just observe my life, that's far more, it's so much more interesting to be in that state of mind.
Hmm. Hmm.
To, and you're still doing the things you're going to do, but there's just, again, the meaning for your life comes from the internal instead of the external.
And there's no external ultimately.
Right. Well,
Even
that's
modern
right.
physics suggests that. I think
Modern
the
physics knows that. There's nothing
yeah,
out there but a
and
projection. Right?
yeah, and certain types of psychology, talk about like cognitive dissonance. I think it's cognitive psychology that talks about how, what we really experience is not the direct world that seems to be outside of us. We experience the interpretations that we almost immediately apply to everything. And like your
Yes.
experience in Kentucky, and I think any of those moments where we're a little bit more lucid, we realize, well, everything that I like those early workbook lessons, everything is around us is really intrinsically neutral, but we've given it,
Yeah.
we've ascribed meaning to it. We've interpreted it as, well, this is good and this is bad. And the tip off that isn't really a, a, a solid framework for which to base any kind of understanding or release from the craziness, is that it changes. It's not reliable, and our senses are just not reliable witnesses. If you look at optical illusions, and if I move back farther, did I just get smaller? No, I just pulled my chair back. But
Did
you
I
know
just, right.
it's like, well, but that's optical illusion. But our world is full of illusions, and
Right, right, right.
um
That's
but
so, you
we
have so many good ones. That's so
well, I mean,
funny.
it's just
Just
kind
these
of
simple
obvious,
things.
but
No,
there's
I know, but
so
that
many
makes a
different optical
point.
illusions that,
It's
that
like,
kind of help us look at that kind of stuff. Yeah, that
yes.
it's so easy to get hooked into and sucked into the idea that that there's a world outside of us. Um, but it's the old, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear the sound, does it make a noise? Well, in
That's
your brother-in-law's books,
it says
I can't remember which one.
no.
It's like,
I
no, not really. It's
no, no, I
no,
think it's
we
to you. I
yeah,
think.
I think so, it might be, yeah. But
I think it's
anyway,
to you.
I
Yeah,
need to reread all those. But anyway, the
yeah.
yeah, but the projection is really taking place all the time. I try to remind
Yeah.
myself, it's like, if I can see that I'm projecting, and think of that as attracting. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
projecting what's in my mind all the time, then there's where the attraction is working all the time. But if I'm using the guilt thought system as the software running the attraction and the magnetization, I'm going to set myself up for all kinds of grievance opportunities. And of course, on some level, we've done that with our scripts anyway. So it's really not a matter of trying to wrestle the script and change the script. It's basically
Yeah,
looking at
we
what
can't.
what we've already
Yeah.
set up for ourselves long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and our signature metaphorically is on the bottom of every screen page of the screenplay of our mind and our script, and just say, wow, if I could just notice that each moment I get to look at what I made up and then either be upset by it or see that as an opportunity to forgive myself for what doesn't matter in truth. Now back
Right.
to Bill Murray, right? It just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. I just, that's so funny. I was just saying about the Derby again to make the point. Something just occurred to me and it went in and it just went out. Went in and it went out.
It'll come
Um,
back.
it'll come
That's
back.
because we have two attractions, right? We
That's
we have
right.
attraction to the real and attraction to the unreal. Yeah.
That's so
So
funny when
that's why
people
we
say,
need to be really patient
"Oh
with
my
ourselves and
gosh."
gentle with ourselves, isn't it?
It is. And that's another thing too. I guess it ties in. I think I was going to say something like, um, to not enjoy an experience like that or any experience. I'm just sharing my own recent one. It can be anything. Um, to not do, um, it's hard because it's an internal
Hmm.
experience. It's hard to kind of put it in words, but if anybody out there, if anybody's enjoying themselves or whatever, you just enjoy yourselves. I know that sounds weird, but I hear from a lot of people that they feel like they feel guilty for enjoying their life, but
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
just making it real on the other side.
Right,
Enjoy
right.
your life. If you want to look at it, if you are, it can be seen as a reflection of the love in your right mind that you're perceiving beauty or something fun. You don't
Hmm.
have to
Hmm.
feel guilty about enjoying your life or anything like that. I think a lot of people resist it. And I only say this because I've been talking to so many people for years and years and years. I hear and work with people all the time on you are making it just as real on the other side by not doing a normal thing, which would
Right,
be,
right.
oh my God, that's so cool that
Hmm.
we got in here and did that. Is my salvation? Do I think I'm so special that no, you're just in your life enjoying it. Oh my God, how fun to win. How cool is that? One like, I bet little bets, well, like $500. How cool is that? I treated people to dinner. I had money left over to do all these things. I have one of the $100 on my wall just because it's so fun to just look at.
Sure, why
Why
not?
would I not do that? But I don't, in my mind, you're not better or worse than anyone. There's nothing like that. You're just kind of moving through your dream, you know, and then
Even if you're a
to,
better, this is just
yeah,
fine.
a better. Yeah. Oh my God. It's just so much, but I want people to know that I'll borrow from Ken.
Well, oh, yeah, there you go. Giggle. Perfect. In fact, I was just going to bring up one of
The
Ken's
inner
books.
smile, the
Yeah,
giggle.
exactly. Yeah, the
My
little the
sister
little
gave this to me. Yeah.
the little voice on our shoulder that says, "Listen, I want to tell you this funny story. It's a hilarious story.
You're not gonna believe it.
You're not gonna exactly. You're not gonna believe it, but you actually believe you made up a world and you're in it as as a specific character in this
You're
world.
so
How
special.
crazy is that? Exactly. Yeah. And you have problems because you wanted the problems because you're attracted to problems. Yeah.
Because it
It kind
makes
of
your
reminds me of Richard
identity.
Bach's. You seek problems because you need their gifts. Well, that's of course,
Ah,
is
Richard Bach.
refinement
Yes.
is we're attracted to guilt and pain and death and insanity because we wanted to have some way of justifying a separate identity. And
Yes.
that's a pretty wild and crazy idea, but the more we look at it, the more we're well, what if that's true? What if I really use all those attachments and aversions and attractions and repulsions and distractions to keep me mindless so that I don't wake up to the real peace that's possible, that is beyond anything that we can imagine. The one thing in when you mentioned Ken, I was thinking about, I finally finished over several years reading a page or two at a time here and
Right.
there. His most scholarly tome, I think, which is Love Does Not Condemn. It's a
Oh my God, I
analysis
have
of,
that right over here. I haven't read it yet.
yeah. Well, if you do read it, I want to have an online discussion group on that, because the last
Oh my
about
gosh.
20% ish or so is about the course, and the rest of it is
Okay.
interesting. If you're, I'm not a biblical scholar or anything like that, or religious scholar, but it's interesting. And
I
Ken, of course, does a
bet.
consummate job at
Well,
it's the last book I would recommend for a new course student, but it is interesting. And
yeah.
and
I've
but in
got it
in
over here. It's still in the plastic, and I pulled it out the other day. I kid you not.
yeah,
Again,
yeah.
with how it's
Well,
weird.
anyway, in that last part, he talks about, the attraction and aversion, and he talks about the libertinism, which is basically the hedonistic. Let's just live for all the gusto in the world and forget anything having to do with the mind or spirit. And the course says, that's probably the most devastating of all when that falls short. But then there's the uh, the other approach, which is the other extreme, also making the world real, which is the ascetic, which
Oh
is,
yeah.
basically saying, I'm renouncing the world. I'm not going to do anything,
Right. I'm not going to
physical.
take care of
I'm
my
going to
body
go,
in the
yeah,
same
I'm
way
going to
I'm
be a
going to do.
monk, or I'm going to go live in a cave, and I'm going to,
Yeah.
renounce any pleasures of the world. It's like, well, that makes the world real too. But interestingly enough, he talked about a third way that we make the world real, and that's basically being a radical moderate, which
Oh,
I hadn't
it's a
even thought
great
of.
term.
Well, I had that may not be his words, but
Gotta
that was what I.
write that down. No, but that's a
But it's like,
radical
as long
moderate.
as I'm making a big deal about being kind of, not too much this and not too much that, I'm still making the world real if I I'm fanatical about it
Yeah.
and to any degree. Yeah,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
if I have to justify my position and
Right,
be
right.
how I am.
Yeah,
It's so funny with I wanted to read one thing because um the attraction of guilt and everything is so strong. People can delve into that, and the more you understand about the course, you start to understand why that is so. It
right.
just seems insane that we'd be attracted to that. It's impossible to go over all that, in
Yeah,
45 minutes. But
sure.
guess what is more powerful than the attraction of guilt? Chapter 15, The Holy Instant, Section 9, which Bruce and I mentioned before we went on here. The Holy Instant and the Attraction of God.
Mhm.
This is what the ego is so afraid of, is we are we are really attracted to God. There's no ego, right? But we while we believe, while we're believing what the ego is telling us, that is more in the back of our mind until we start practicing our forgiveness and the Holy Spirit starts to become our teacher more and more of the time. And I just wanted to read this
Please.
from that section if anybody wants to look it up. Chapter 15, The Holy Instant, Section 9, Paragraph 6. You have no conception of the limits you have placed on your perception and no idea of all the loveliness that you could see. But
Mhm.
this you must remember: the attraction of guilt opposes the attraction of God. His attraction for you remains unlimited, but because your power, being His, is as great as His, you can turn away from love. What you invest in guilt, you withdraw from God. And your sight grows weak and dim and limited, for you have attempted to separate the Father from the Son and limit their communication.
Exactly.
So this, from when you said the power of 10, it made me think of this, of as we start backing up, we start to experience how grand we really are, not in the body way, not as a body, but something happens when you get in touch with that love. Everything else does fall away, your attachment to it. You start to understand but I'm not guilty. That's right. I am innocent.
Mhm.
That was a lie back there.
Yep.
And the mind will do its thing. The mind will help you along with remembering all that. Again, not in a spiritual weird like bypass way, or not in a, we have to look at our stuff. You have to look at it with Jesus. Don't not look at it, right?
Mhm.
Because that's how it gets transformed. That's how you shift the perception. We have no idea how we could really feel, and it's an inner experience when you really start pulling away from what you thought made you happy. Again, you're not judging people and things, and everybody's on a different path. It has nothing to do with that. It's your own internal awakening, and then you embrace your brother, and it doesn't matter what spiritual path they're on, or this, there's no need for comparisons or anything, because everyone is joined like in that love. So if we can just remember like that attraction is stronger,
Yeah.
and we can get in touch with that by just being willing and saying, I'm willing to let go of my specialness. I'm willing to. And how do we do it? We do it every single time we're upset and we're judging others.
Right.
We feel like we're a body because we're less than, we feel more than, we feel this, we're comparing. It never makes us feel good
Yep.
permanently.
Yep.
Temporarily, we feel good when we project our guilt onto someone. We say they're the cause of it. But then you have to remember, oh, but I put them there. Of course they're doing that because I put them there so that I could see the guilt,
Yep.
right?
We're all on
In
each
them
other's
instead of
theatrical
me.
payroll. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love, we're all
That
each
that that
other's
that isn't original. That's
theatrical.
from that's something that Ken Wapnick quoted from Schopenhauer, I think it was. Anyway,
He
I
did.
just think it's a great line.
We're
I think
all on
it was
each
something like
other's theatrical.
the theatrical manager of the mind kind of thing, and it's like,
My
well,
God,
yeah,
I just love
it's a
it.
movie. It's a giant holographic movie that
All on each other's theatrical payroll. It's just, we know that, it's just the phrasing of that. I just
yeah,
love that. Oh my God. All the world's indeed a stage. We are
absolutely.
merely
Yeah.
players, each
The,
another's audience
there's
inside the
one quote that
gilded
I think fits
cage.
really nicely with what you read
Mhm.
from chapter 15.
Oh
Is
yeah.
this is in 19. I think it fits really nicely, and it really points to where our work is. Um, and but all the time showing us, the light at the end of the ego's tunnel of separation.
Well,
And it's
yeah.
love. This is in chapter 19. This is this 11th paragraph in the attraction of guilt. It's love's messengers are gently sent and return with messages of love and gentleness. So there's the seek and you will find. And then the seek but
Yes.
do not find, that the ego is the messengers of fear are harshly ordered to seek out guilt and cherish every scrap of evil and of sin that they can find, losing none of them on pain of death and laying them respectfully before their Lord and Master. And then it goes on from there.
Yes.
But I mean, the contrast is so stark. And if we're really
It's
looking for it, the
contrast.
course really shows us how outrageously, absurdly insane everyone's ego is, even though
Oh
we
my
try to
gosh.
water it down and sugarcoat it and you know do bliss
Yeah.
nitty end around kind of stuff. But if we really look at it and just notice moment to moment when we're choosing that craziness, and
Mm-hmm.
forgive ourselves and not add kerosene to the ego's fire, and just say, oh, I must have been afraid of the love that's behind that choice.
Yes.
And
And how,
that alone is hugely important. Like Ken says, you don't have to do anything, just look, just notice when we're choosing insanity,
mm-hmm.
and then forgive ourselves. Yeah.
I love it. I know I've said this a couple times, that just banking on when you keep saying just notice. So I wonder, I like people to know what that is. I think sometimes it can feel, and again, this is the feedback I always get, that you're not like doing anything or whatever. Believe me, you're guys, you're going to do things, you're, because
Right.
it's already the future from when I just said, it occurred to me. And now it's already the future from when I just said that I said, it occurred to me. And now it's the future from that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It goes on. You're gonna do things again. Focus on your thoughts, like
The present is
what you're
pretty
thinking.
elusive to the ego, isn't it? Yeah. Because it always wants to anchor us in guilt, and the Holy
Oh,
Spirit would always release us from
yes.
that imprisonment into an
Yes.
eternity of innocence. Yeah.
Yes. And so we're think of, notice how much you're just mired in the past and then like fearing the future and it's not being in the present moment. I had an experience the other day where I and yes, I'm just practicing all the time, meaning it's I'm not even thinking about I'm automatically list observing. And so, oh, gosh, it's hard to even explain it. I'll do it really quickly, try to do. um I was worried about something, and I was so tired of worrying about it that something in my mind, I said, you know what? I just don't need to worry about that. The reason I'm worrying about that is because I feel that I'm a body, and I feel like someone's going to be so disappointed if I don't do something. And guess what? The the sun is going to rise and fall if Jackie doesn't do something. I guarantee
Mhm,
I'm not
mhm.
the most important. And the second thing was I sat there, I thought, yeah, it's only bodies. It's only something and it's made up. I said, what if I just relax right now? So I sat down, I laid in this recliner back there. I just closed my eyes. I just remembered really, I was like, God, I'm really at home in God. That issue, that thing that I was thinking of, not only did it fade away, it hasn't returned. And I got up and I had the most productive day being able to be in the moment, going from one task to the next. And I thought, this is why we do it, why we practice, is being in that presence all the time. And we're not all the time, but I'm saying that's a
Yeah.
goal where you can just be like that. And it took my brother and sister, not my real brother, and so I'm saying brothers and our brothers and sisters.
In the larger sense, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it took that issue, right?
Hmm,
My
hmm.
brothers and sisters to bring that to my
Yeah,
awareness. So we
exactly,
need everything.
exactly.
This is
Everything
what,
becomes our classroom rather than a
yes,
prison, right?
yes, this is what we can spin this around. This is
Hmm.
then what we use everything for, is that. So all of a sudden, the body, the people are not doing this or that, or they won't be disappointed. It's not even that. It's in the mind of, oh my gosh, I'm using the images I made to remember that everything is okay. And guess what? If they would have been disappointed, which they weren't, that would have been okay too, because it's built in that we can't please everybody. So I'm not saying that you're going to go through life and nobody, you're never going to have a moment with people. That wasn't my point. My point was when I was able to go back and just realize how ridiculous the story was as about that I was telling myself, right?
Hmm.
So it was really a nice moment, and that carried through for a few days, I have to say. No.
That's really
But
cool. Yeah, and I think it's just noticing how conditional we make peace when it really is an unconditional possibility in our mind at every moment. With if we just keep asking ourselves, you know, I could I see peace instead of this? Well, maybe I could, and
hmm
maybe I'm not upset for the reason I think.
yes, and guess what, too? I just wanted to say this point again. I don't know why, I just felt kind of inspired to say it. Remember, dealing with situations or problems in the world in a normal way is not what makes the world real. What
Hmm.
makes the world real is not recognizing that the cause of everything is really the one problem of separation in the mind, and what's out there can't affect the truth of who you are.
Yeah,
It's
exactly,
not that you're not going to do things and move around in the dream in a normal way, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Very well said. And another way of putting that is the world isn't the problem, and the whole thought system of duality that we call ego that made up the world isn't the problem either. It's
No.
the decision to believe in the idea of separation, the idea
Yes.
of the ego that's the problem, and
It's
that we
the
can,
belief that's the problem.
yeah,
Hmm
we can get to at any moment that we notice we're not at peace. That's the trigger to just to trace it back to the source. Yeah,
Trace it back to the cause. Yep.
yeah, no,
And that's such a great thing to finish on, because that's such a profound point. The world isn't the problem. In the mind, your thoughts, that ego mind isn't the problem. It's our belief. We believe that we've separated. That's the only problem
Yeah.
that
Yep.
needs to be corrected. Love
Exactly.
it. I love it.
So simple, huh?
So, yes, boy, it's so
Now there's the
simple,
lab
isn't
assignment.
it?
Now that we got the theory
Oh,
down, right?
yeah. Now that we got the theory down, now the work begins. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So be gentle and patient with yourself, as we all
Oh, don't we
need to
always
remind
say that?
ourselves. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really important.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's just everybody's, what is it, Plato? Uh, be kind, we're all for everybody's fighting a hard battle or
I've heard there's
yeah.
actually several different people that may have
That have
said that,
said that. Yes,
but
for
it doesn't
sure.
matter. It doesn't
There's
matter.
several
It's
people
but
that have.
it's a
That's
great
why I'm
quote, no
always
matter
like,
who
who
said it. Yeah,
who said that? I'm like,
yeah,
who said that?
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
But
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, it's so fun to get together and discuss
Likewise,
these.
likewise. Yeah, I always enjoy our conversations, and
Yeah,
look
we'll
forward to
do
the
it
next one.
again.
So
Yes, we'll
I
do it
will.
again.
I will send you a link and put your website and social media and all that good stuff on the
Oh,
post that I make.
thanks.
And
Sounds
I
good.
really appreciate you spending the time.
Yep.
So
Great
anyway,
to see you, Bruce. We'll talk again
likewise.
soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye.